Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside D-Day at Iwo Jima. This is the fourth in the D-Day series that is from Decision Games. John Butterfield had designed the original three: D-Day at Omaha, D-Day at Peleliu, and D-Day at Tarawa. And this time Joe Youst has taken a spin at the series, and this is one of the most iconic battles in the history of the United States Marine Corps. It was a terribly bloody battle, and it is a great example, as were a lot of the island hopping campaigns, on defense in depth for the Japanese, who were grossly outnumbered. I think it was like 5-1 when you take into account ground, air, and sea forces that were committed to taking the island of Iwo Jima. This was another stepping stone on the path towards the mainland of Japan in World War II. Just to give you an idea of how brutal this battle was, there were roughly 21,000 Japanese troops and 110,000 United States Marines. And the final tally was somewhere in the neighborhood of around 18,000 Japanese soldiers were killed. There were 3,000 or so that were considered in hiding. That a lot of those, I believe, ended up committing suicide. If you've ever seen letters from Iwo Jima, you'll know exactly what we're talking about, or seen Flags of Our Fathers. That kind of, or read the book, that kind of goes into the detail on that. Only 216 Japanese soldiers out of the 21,000 were ever taken prisoner. As far as the Marines were concerned, there were about just under 7,000 killed and 19,000 wounded. So that shows you the ferocity of the fighting in this battle. And they pounded the hell out of the island. They expected, when the Marines were coming ashore, they didn't have any resistance. And that was Kuribayashi's plan, was to bring the Marines ashore and suck them in. As you do in defense in depth, you bring your enemy in, you lull them in, and then you hammer them with everything you got. And that's what happened with the Marines on Iwo. But that is a little bit of the background on the Battle of Iwo Jima, and a very quick thumbnail sketch, which you can find out more online. And there's even a book inside here that will go over even more than what I just covered. But great photo, shows the steepness of the volcanic ash, and that's exactly what it was that these guys had to climb and to get over it. I mean, they were sinking into it. It was like quicksand almost. But terrible terrain to fight on. Let's check out the back of the box. It says, D-Day at Iwo Jima is a solitaire game simulating the amphibious invasion of Iwo Jima. The 5-week battle was some of the bloodiest fighting in the Pacific. In one of the costliest intelligence failures of the war, the planners had completely misjudged the situation that would face the Marines. The beaches had been described as excellent, and the advance inland was expected to be easy. Instead, the Marines were faced with 15-foot-high slopes of soft black volcanic ash that brought the normally rapid-moving Marines down to a slow plod. In addition, the lack of a vigorous response led the Marines to believe that the bombardment had completely suppressed the defenses. However, General Kuribayashi was far from beaten. Understanding that his forces were insufficient to defeat the massive American invasion force, he had decided to defend the island in depth. And in D-Day at Iwo Jima, designer Joe Youst builds on John Butterfield's award-winning solitaire system. The player controls 3 U.S. Marine divisions against a determined Japanese defense. The no-dice combat system highlights the unknown enemy deployments and coordination of the right weapon systems and tactics. Players familiar with the previous 3 games in the system will be able to quickly set up and play this latest version. New features include a random fortification generation system that simulates the ability of the Japanese forces to refortify supposedly weakened positions, and an updated infiltration system that encourages the player to maintain a continuous line. There are 6 different scenarios in the game. It starts off with D-Day, which covers the first 6 days, or I should say the first day in 6 turns. Then you have Suribachi, Drive to the North, Hot Rocks, Drive to the Sea, and the Sands of Iwo Jima campaign, which is the full campaign of the battle from 19th February to 11th March. And there is an example of the map and the cards that you're going to get, as well as the counters. It says here, players 1 to 3, and the reason why is, even though it's a solitaire game, you can play it cooperatively. Playing time is anywhere from 2 to 12 hours. Complexity is 3.5 out of 5. and solitaire is obviously very high at 5. Game components, you get 528 die-cut counters, one 34-inch by 22-inch mounted map board, one 11 by 17-inch setup map, player aid cards, color rule booklet, a color campaign analysis, and 55 event cards. Okay, let's take a look inside the box and see what you get. There is our cards. We get some baggies. Get our color rules booklet, which we'll come back to. And this is the campaign analysis book. It's entitled Black Sand, Red Blood, The Battle of Iwo Jima. And it goes for, let's see if it's 64 pages. So it's a good length of a booklet, and it'll give you, there's General Kurabayashi there. And it goes through all aspects of the battle, so you can get some background for those of you who may not be familiar with it, and those of you who are will probably find some new information in the book. And I like also how it gives you maps as far as showing you the progress of the Marines in the entire campaign throughout the book. Then we've got our setup map, and that gives you a breakdown of the different forces that are going to land on the different beaches. You have green beach, red 1, red 2, yellow 1 and yellow 2, blue 1 and blue 2. Then on the other side of the island, you also have purple, brown, white, and orange are alternative beach landings that will be available to you if you choose to do so in the different scenarios in the game. And then the Japanese setup as well, in the different sectors, what units will be set up there. And also it gives you, it's hard to see on this, but there's dotted outlines to explain to you, like scenario 3, the start line is here, and it's going to give you a delineation on the map as to where each scenario starts, as well as the 3 airfields you can see, and Suribachi here on the furthest left side of the map. Then we have our attack results charts and barrage result chart, Japanese fire chart, and this is also the U.S. weapons chart here. And then we've got the tech, the terrain effects chart, and on the back of that is the sequence of play. And then you have your record track, U.S. record track, Japanese record track, and the turn sequence track. Nothing on the back of that. And then this is the USMC step loss and holding units display for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Marine Divisions. And nothing on the back of that either. So that is the aids you get there. And those are all cardstock. You might want to do like I do with a lot of these ones. I go ahead and I will laminate them. And here are your counters. Pretty standard NATO symbols on the counters, and then you have the badges for the different units, so you can follow along with who is what unit just by the badge, as well as the unit designation. You have Golf 228 here, you have Echo 227, and so on and so forth throughout all of them. And now on these ones, this game now is using just heroism and then a generic rifleman and NCO and officer counters. In the past, there were specific named people in some of the other ones. And here we've got our Japanese units, as well as different weapons that will be used. And we have some admin counters here for disrupted, step losses, smoke, garrison units, and then you have your phase and turn track markers here that you can use to keep track of everything on the map. Let's clear some space out here so we can show you this map, because this mounted map board is a new addition. For those who would like to have mounted maps, because they are very popular mounted maps, the games are now coming with those standard. So there is the map of Iwo Jima. And for those who have never played any of the D-Day series, you're going to look at this and say, what the hell, Mo? This is just it's ugly. I mean, it's a gorgeous map, but I mean, what may appear ugly is all of these colored symbols. And the reason why is this game, if you're not already familiar with it, this is, as I said in the reading the back of the box, it is a diceless game. So you're going to use cards, and all of these cards will tell you who's going to attack and what areas are under attack. And this is interesting because as you're drawing cards, you kind of can get a sense for areas that you may have a better chance of moving through that may not see fire, because this will actually denote fire lanes and things like that that the Marines will face, and who is going to attack, who's not going to attack. And if you see a bunch of yellow, for example, for a while, and you're knowing, hey, there can't be that many yellow in the deck, I have a better chance of moving here than, say, against a black or a blue, which I haven't seen a lot of them. So you can kind of get a sense of the ebb and flow of the battle in that regard. So in that way, it's kind of neat. On top of the fact that the system really does teach you that no place is safe in combat, which I really do appreciate in the design of this game. I think that gets that across very well. While you can get a feel for it, like I say, with the ebb and flow of battle, of the card flow in the game, and what cards have come out, which cards have not. It's kind of like waning fire. You know, you've got an area where, you know what, the fire is starting to dwindle over here. They're probably either running out of ammo, or maybe they've retreated back to another position. So you can look at it in that sense, as far as if you're trying to look at it from a thematic standpoint. But that is kind of just a brief overview. This is not a rules overview, but I wanted to give you a brief overview of what I was talking about. But back to the map itself, it is very well done by Decision Games. This is just a very colorful map. The areas of the map are clearly delineated, so you can see the different types of terrain, and you can also see the different areas that you'll be using for the scenarios, and the vivid colors of the colors that are used on the cards is well done, and you have plenty of placement for all your units up top, and your command post marker over here, and then it does have some explanations here about catastrophic losses, things like that. And that is a look at the map. Now let's take a look through the rules booklet. Now, this is not a thin book. This is pretty rules intensive. It runs 48 pages. The back of the book is the Japanese fire / action summary, and that will give you a breakdown on how the Japanese fire actions are handled through the different turns. Like game turn 1 through 6, these happen. Game turn 7, starting game turn 7, and then game turn 7 through 48. These actions are available, and then on starting on turn 49, these are available as well. So that is a quick, brief look at that. But when you look inside, it goes up to page 48, as I said, but the introduction is on page 4. So, okay, it's 44 actual pages. And you go with your game component breakdown here on page 4, and that goes to page 8. And then setting up takes you to page 9. So sequence of play actually starts on page 10, and it goes all the way through to page 42. And at that point, the rest of the book is covering the scenarios, and then the master reinforcement lists and event descriptions, close combat events, and as we already looked at, the Japanese fire action summary on the back of the book. But we'll take a look through, and this book, the other thing great about it too is these books are very well illustrated with the examples of play that explain everything to you in a great format. So while this is a thick book, a deep book to get into, and pretty rules intensive, it's not super difficult to understand everything as you run through them. But there are the flip books that a lot of people have, some industrious, fantastic people on BGG have put them together and placed them out there for download, and I strongly recommend, if you play any of the D-Day series games, to use that. That's what I do, and you can kind of almost ignore the rule book by just following the flip book. You can hit when you run into something that is not explained in a flip book. You can just pop the rule book open and then get to case 6.2.2 range, for example. If you need an explanation on that rule, it's right there. So that's the beauty of using those flip books. It makes the game pass by a lot quicker, and then you can follow everything. All of these steps that are in this book, you have to follow in order. It's very procedural. So that's one of the great things about those flip books is it lays out the processes all for you, and then what you need to understand from the rules itself, you can just go right in, and a lot of times, if not most of the time, they'll have the case for you. But here are some examples of the attack system in the game, how it works. And as you can see, these are great illustrated examples of play, and that's one of the things, you know, I constantly hit on. Illustrated examples of play are really huge. And then you have anything that's in red is obviously important. It's a call out, and it even says important next to it. And then it goes into how you reveal your depth markers, raid examples, hero commands, counter mix limits, hero attack wildcard, how heroes work in the game. Then you have your Japanese lettered actions, control and communications, Japanese tank units, command points and garrisons, replacement reserves and rest, fortification markers. Scenarios now start on page 42, and it breaks down the 6 scenarios that we talked about on the back of the book. It'll break them down for you and explain to you the setup for both the US and the Japanese, and the win conditions as well. Then you have your master reinforcement list, which tells you which reinforcements arrive on the different game turns from game turn 2 through to game turn 30. And then here you have your event descriptions that explain to you what happens when these events take place, what they entail. Then you have your close combat events, and then again back to the back of the book. But that is a look inside what you get with D-Day at Iwo Jima from Decision Games. And if you've not played any of the D-Day series and are looking to try them, this is slightly different than the others, which we'd have already covered, but that is a look inside D-Day at Iwo Jima from Decision Games, and this is everything that you're going to get. Like I said, if you've not played any of the D-Day at Iwo or Peleliu, Tarawa, or Omaha series of games, they're really fantastic solitaire games, and if you do buy them, make sure you go and download and print out the flip books that are available on BGG. So if you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.